So, my pleasure to introduce Theron McAdoo.
If I were to not use the microphone and just use a loud voice, can everybody hear me in the back, or should I use the microphone? Yeah? Okay, cool. I don't really like the microphone, but I'll use it if I have to. Before I start, I wanted to thank Jeff and Jamie for two things. First, for asking me to be the muster speaker. That's an honor that I never expected to have, and even at a small muster like this, it's a huge honor. So thank you guys for asking me to speak. And second, for running the Sierra Nevada A&M Club. It's really, I know there's other people who help out, but my impression is that the club is run by Jeff and Jamie. Just the fact that we all have a place and food to eat and Shiner Bock to drink and a place to gather and have muster, thanks goes to them. So thank you guys. There's been 4 times in my life that I've truly felt the importance of muster. Not just known the importance, but really felt it in a moment in my life. The first of those 4 moments came during my very first week in Aggieland. It was August of 2018, and I was a brand new fish in the Corps of Cadets. Classes hadn't started yet, but all the fish in the Corps were on campus early for what's called Freshman Orientation Week, which is really 2 weeks, but they don't tell you that in the brochure. And during FOW, Freshman Orientation Week, we did a lot of exercising, we learned how to march, we learned how to wear the uniform, and we also learned what are called campusologies. And campusologies are basically little bits of information, history, traditions, everything about A&M, anything that a good cadet should be able to tell someone if they were to ask. Anyway, it's August of 2018, and that summer I had been a high school graduate, summer vacation, I had a girlfriend, I was on top of the world. But not this week. This week I found myself bald and in College Station, Texas in August out on the quad learning how to march and sweating my way through a poorly worn World War II era cadet uniform. So needless to say, my life looked a lot different this week than it had the summer prior, and I wasn't terribly thrilled about it. But that day we were out on the quad and we were learning to march, or attempting to learn to march, and when we were done we came back into the dorms and all of the freshmen lined up against the wall at attention, and our first sergeant of our outfit, this guy by the name of Daniel Whitten, was coming down the line quizzing all of me and my buddies on the campusologies, the little bits of information that we were supposed to have been memorizing. And as a freshman, you have to memorize 30-something campusologies and be able to recite them verbatim the way they appear in this little book that you get issued. It's called the Cadence. And anyway, Daniel Whitten was coming down the line quizzing all of us, and he was a couple people down from me at this guy, Jack Gartner. And he said, "Fish Gartner, tell me why 55 flags fly over Kyle Field at each home football game." And Gartner messed it up. And he said, "Gartner, you're a slapdick, study more." And then he moved on to the next guy, my buddy Henderson. And he said, "Fish Henderson, tell me who Lawrence Sullivan Ross was." And Henderson messed it up. Daniel said, "You're a slapdick, study more." And he moved on to me. And he said, "Fish McAdoo, tell me about Aggie muster." And I had remembered seeing that one in the little book, but I didn't remember what it said, so I just made something up that I thought sounded good. Daniel didn't think it sounded very good. And that was okay because I figured he'd just say, "Fish McAdoo, you're also a slapdick, study more," and move on to the next guy, but he didn't. He stopped and he stared at me for a while. And then he got really close to me and he said, "Fish McAdoo, if I was you, I wouldn't get another wink of sleep until you can tell me everything I might ever want to know about Aggie muster and why it's important to this university." And he said, "There's a few things in this book," and he held up the Cadence. He said, "There's a few things in this book that you'd never mess up, and Aggie Muster is one of those things. He said, I never will hear you disrespect Aggie Muster the way you just did ever again. Am I understood? And I managed to say, yes, sir, through a lump in my throat. And in that moment, I felt the importance of Aggie Muster. I didn't know why it was important yet, but just the fact that I could tell it meant so much to Daniel Whitten was enough for me to stay up all night memorizing the lines that I'll now never forget. On April 21st each year, on the anniversary of the Battle of San Jacinto, Aggies gather together wherever they are to commemorate fellow Aggies who have died during the year. The tradition was begun 21 April 1903. That's what I should have told Daniel that day when he asked me. The second time in my life when I felt the importance of muster came 3 years after that first time. I was a junior in the Corps at this point. I was actually the first sergeant of our outfit, same as Daniel Whitten had been. And also during my junior year, I became a member of the Ross Volunteer Company. And the Ross Volunteer Company is a special unit within the Corps that serves as the honor guard for the governor of Texas and performs and hosts silver taps and muster on campus, along with a handful of other things. And as a Ross volunteer, I was selected to be a part of the 21-man firing squad that performs at Silver Taps and at muster. And this is an incredible honor that I was very proud to accept, but it's an honor that comes with a weight. And it's a weight knowing that you will play a role in the carrying out of Texas A&M's most sacred traditions. And for the new firing squad that had been selected that year, our first performance would be at campus muster that spring, which was less than a month away. And so we practiced every night for 20 days in a row leading up to muster. And then on the 21st, muster came and Reed Arena filled up that evening and the speaker spoke and the roll call was read and the candles were lit. And then we began to march out onto the floor at a very slow pace. And everything was silent except for the sound of the metal taps on our shoes hitting the floor in a perfect rhythm. And everything was dark except for the dim glow of the light from the candles that had been lit. And we marched out to the middle of the floor, and when we got to the middle of the floor, we stopped and we went through the firing sequence that we had practiced so many times. And when it came time for me to fire, I pointed my rifle to the sky and pulled the trigger. And when the rifle went off, there was a flash from the muzzle that illuminated everything around me just for a brief moment. And in that moment, I saw a woman, probably a mother, standing in the front row holding a candle. And on her face was a look of sorrow and a look of peace. A look of sorrow for the one that she had lost, but a look of peace because in that moment I could tell that she understood that the love that her child had for Texas A&M and their spirit would live on through all of those who had said here when her name was called. And I realized that this feeling of peace that I was recognizing in a time of sorrow is not just unique to this one person, but I believe that feeling of peace in a time of sorrow is felt by anyone whose loved one's name is called at muster and answered for with here. And all of these thoughts transpired within the blast of the rifle, but in that moment I could feel the importance of muster. And the third time that I felt the importance of muster was just this last year in October. I was in my second season working as a wildland firefighter for the U.S. Forest Service, and the crew that I was on had been sent on an assignment to northern Wyoming to fight a fire in the Bighorn Mountains. We got there and we were assigned to night shift. The first 3 nights were calm, but the 4th night we were having a briefing before we went out for our shift, and in the briefing they told us that they were expecting a big wind event in the fire area that night. and that we should be prepared for sustained 50-mile-an-hour winds, gusts to 80 miles an hour. And as I'm sure a lot of you know, anyone who was impacted by the Galena fire here in Reno last year, or as I'm sure anyone in LA could tell you, when you've got a wildfire on your hands, wind is not your friend. And so we went out that night with a heightened sense of awareness, and we were working at this ranch that was in the fire's path, doing our best to prepare the structures to take fire. And sure enough, around midnight, the wind started to swirl and gust and pick up and blow really hard downslope. And I looked up from where I had been working and looked up on the hill where the fire had been slowly creeping along, and the fire was in the process of standing up into a 100-foot wall of flames that was moving down the hill towards us. And we knew this was going to happen, so we were prepared for it, and we had plenty of safety precautions in place. But all of that aside, when I looked up on the hill and saw a 100-foot wall of flames moving towards me, the thought ran through my mind that tonight could be the night that I were to die. And I expected that thought to scare me, but it didn't. And it didn't because the next thought that came through my mind was that if I were to die tonight, my name would be called at muster. And all those that I love and many that I never even knew would answer here for me. And in that way, my legacy and my love for Texas A&M would live on. And that thought brought me peace, and in that moment, I felt the importance of Aggie muster. The fourth time in my life that I felt the importance of Aggie muster is here tonight with you all. Because it's the fact that all of us are here tonight that makes us Aggies. See, if any of us were at the Dallas or Houston muster or San Antonio muster tonight, I'm sure we'd be in a giant banquet hall and it would be fancy and we'd all be dressed much nicer than we are. And there'd be a high-profile speaker and 1,000 Aggies, many of whom have never missed a football game or never go a day without wearing maroon or something like that. And I look around this room and I think it's a little bit different. And I won't speak for anyone else, but I can say personally, I don't really know what's going on with any of the Aggie sports teams. And I'm pretty far removed from everything going on campus. I've donated $0 to the university since I graduated. And to be completely honest with you guys, I don't even wear my Aggie ring all that often. But I don't feel shame in any of that. And if any of that rings true with any of you, I would encourage you not to feel shame in it either. Because it's not how many football games we've been to or how much money we've donated to the university that makes us Aggies. What makes us Aggies is our commitment to each other. So if you remember just one thing from this speech tonight, remember this. What makes us Aggies above everything else is our commitment to each other. It's a commitment to carry forward the Aggie spirit for those who have passed. That's what makes us Aggies. It's the fact that everyone in this room made the effort to be here tonight in a casino in Reno, Nevada, 1,700 miles from College Station, to share a meal, to share stories, to softly call the muster and let Comrade answer here. That's what makes us Aggies. Whoop! In 1943, a good Ag by the name of John Ashton wrote a poem titled Roll Call for the Absent. And in that poem, he wrote, "Mark them present in our hearts. We'll meet some other day." And that's what we'll do here this evening when the roll call for the absent is read. We'll mark them present in our hearts so that their love for Texas A&M and their spirit may live on through each of our own. Because it's our spirits, along with the spirits of Aggies gathered everywhere tonight, that make up the spirit of Aggieland. And unlike each of us, the spirit of Aggieland will never die. Thanks and gig 'em.
Whoop!